Next, parents of severely disabled children say they feel forgotten during lockdown. New figures from the Disabled Children's Partnership suggest that in 76% of cases, disabled children and their families have been surviving since March without any of their normal care and support. Ellie Costello has this.
This is Spike. At 9 days old, he had a heart attack and a stroke. He suffered severe brain damage. He has cerebral palsy, is epileptic and is deaf, so has very limited communication. Since the start of lockdown, Spike's mum has cared for him alone. She is just one of the many parents in the UK in this difficult position.
The Disabled Children's Partnership has surveyed more than 4,000 parents of kids with complex needs. More than 3/4 of those families say that all care and support has been withdrawn since lockdown began. The majority of these parents report worsening mental and physical health of not only themselves, but of their children.
We've kind of had to just wing it and make it up as we're going along, really. You know, I received this letter saying that he's been identified as vulnerable, you need to shield him. There was no guidance in that at all. So I then get to a point 8 weeks later that I'm absolutely on my knees and begging for help, saying, somebody please take him because I'm broken.
Aside from the emotional strain, 1 in 5 families said they will go into debt as a result of caring for a disabled child during the pandemic. Rachel Wright made the decision to pay for a private carer to move in with her family during lockdown. Her 14-year-old son Sam has severe cerebral palsy and is blind. He can't walk, he can't talk, he can just about scratch his nose. Prior to lockdown, 10 people helped to care for Sam. Rachel managed alone for 2 weeks, but it became too much.
There are safeguarding issues. As a nurse, I go to work and I can't work more than 14 hours. I can't work more than 12 hours without legislation and regulation saying I can't. I certainly can't work 14 days in a row and be deemed safe in my practice. Yet, as a parent of a child with complex needs, I'm making decisions about medications, I'm making clinical decisions about seizures, I'm drawing up meds, I'm trying to look out for evidence of reflux and stuff. And my peers have done 50 days on a trot without any support, and they are still considered safe to medicate their children and to make those life-changing decisions.
So what needs to happen moving forward?
Ministers and the daily press briefings very, very rarely mention disabled children, and families fundamentally feel really forgotten.
The Department of Health and Social Care said the government is working to support the safety and well-being of those with special educational needs and disabilities at this time. During this pandemic, local authorities will work with their local providers of short breaks to offer as much flexibility as possible whilst adhering to the government's guidance to keep children and staff safe. We have also made £10 million in grants available to help families. For many of us, life is slowly going to return to normal. But for families of kids like Sam and Spike, their journey back to normality is only just beginning. Ellie Costello, BBC News.
Let's talk now to Matt Rooney, head teacher at St Giles School for Special Educational Needs, and Ilham Elfen, who's a single mum to a little girl called Nada, who has special educational needs too. Welcome both of you. Ilham, I know before lockdown you had a carer who would come in to help look after your daughter. That now hasn't happened for 14 weeks. What has it been like for you?
Good morning. Yes, I had a carer who hasn't been helping me since 14 weeks. It's been tough, it's been confusing, it's been dark because I didn't have any break since. We're not leaving the house. We don't go out except to the school which is next door for blood tests and to play in the playground once every 3 weeks or every 2 weeks.
That sounds pretty stressful.
It is when you know that the child does not understand what's going on and she has learning difficulties, severe learning difficulties and anxiety disorder. So you're always careful about what to tell her. You can't tell her don't touch people, don't touch this, because the anxiety will be higher than usual and it's going to be hard to go back to normality. It's not like the button that you can turn on and off. Now people are bad. Later people will be okay. It's not that easy.
Do you see an end in sight? I mean, when the carers will be able to come back to help you, to give you some respite?
Not really, because I haven't had anyone contacting me to tell me how to do it safely, to get any guidelines, for her to come. Even if she takes her out, there is nowhere to go. Playgrounds are not open yet. There is no swimming pool, nowhere to go, and it's not safe. I don't drive myself. She doesn't drive, so we're not able to take public transport. So I don't see it coming anytime soon.
Ilham, I'm just going to bring in Matt Rooney, if I may. I know, Matt, your school has remained open during lockdown. Why did you decide to do that, and what kind of support have you been able to give to families?
I think we've worked with our families to identify the support that they've needed. So we've been able to provide hydrotherapy, physiotherapy. We sent home all of our children's equipment as the school began to lock down. You know, a fifth of our children are shielded, so they're at home at the moment. And it's critical, you know, that those families and those children get the support. I think this piece is absolutely right to identify the story of Spike and Sam, that it is really difficult, and lots of our parents have told us how hard it's been, but our school has been absolutely committed to standing with them, to providing the support that they need. We've got some children who come in to access our playgrounds, our sensory gardens, the swings. You know, as small as it sounds, these things are making a big difference. We're trying to ensure that our school community stays together. We've set on virtual assemblies, we visit families, we drop off food, we're providing education in some of our families' homes for children, because we must not forget these children. And I think it's absolutely critical that we do all that we can to be there for them, to stand with them, because they will not be forgotten. You know, none of our children at St Giles will be forgotten. And we've had to change the way we work. You know, I meet twice a week with the local social services department. I meet once a week with the health service providers. We talk about all of our children to assess and to understand what they need. We knew that families' resilience would dip and decrease over time, and it is really difficult. And I think schools in Nottinghamshire, special schools around the country, are doing their absolute best to support these families. And I know that local authorities, certainly Nottinghamshire County Council, is trying really hard as well.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you both of you very much for talking to us this morning. We appreciate your time today. Ilham Elfen, who looks after Nada. Nada has autism and learning difficulties, and she's found it very stressful without carers through lockdown. And Matt Rooney, head teacher of St Giles School for Special Education.